Hey guys, Joseph Henson here with Henson CPA Group. I hope you guys are having a great week and that you're ready for the 4th of July. Uh, Last week, we talked about how to build wealth as a veterinary clinic owner without working 80 hours a week. This week, we thought we'd switch gears. It's the midway point of the year. So this week, we are going to talk about halfway through the year. Is your clinic on track financially? Again, I'm Joseph Henson with Henson CPA Group, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. So, why does mid-year matter? June isn't just a halfway point. It's not just 6 months until Christmas. It's not just 6 months until you have to realize you're messing up with the year still. You're putting 2024. It is your chance to adjust the plan before it's too late for your clinic, for your taxes, for financials, everything. If you're missing targets now, you have limited time to fix it by December. There are opportunities you can take now to reduce tax surprises, improve profit, and boost cash flow. In 3 months, it's a lot less. In 6 months, you're out of time. Now is the point where you figure out if what you're doing is working. So what should you look at right now? You need to be looking at your year-to-date revenue. You need to look at your net income or profit. You need to look at owner distributions, your overhead percentage, and your cash flow position. Do you finally feel like you're getting a little extra cash in the bank? Are you planning for the slow period that might come up in the next 3 months? Now is what you want to look at. So are you hitting your goals? Now is a fantastic time to compare your actuals to your annual goals. You should be setting a budget and saying, hey, I want to make $1 million this year. Are you 50% of the way there? Is your revenue at $500,000? What about your profits? Do you want to make a profit of $150,000? Are your margins holding? Are you running at about $75,000 in profit so far? Is it possible that you can get to $150,000 by the end of the year? And one of the most important things is owner pay. Have you taken at least half of your goal? If your goal as the owner of your clinic is to make $100,000 above your salary, say your salary is at $100,000, you also want $100,000 in distributions. Are you at $150,000? Or like previous years, are you waiting to see what you have left over until the end of the year? Key benchmark targets for veterinary clinics. Overhead. You want to look at aiming for 60 to 70% of revenue. Your profit margin. This is after all of your operating expenses. It needs to be about 10 to 20%. So if you make $1 million, your profit margin should be between $100,000 and $200,000. Are you on track for that? Or are you so far gone that you don't think that you can get back on track? Revenue per full-time employee that is a veterinarian, a doctor of veterinary medicine, should be roughly $400,000 to $600,000. If you have 1.5 doctors, counting yourself, you should be making between $600,000 and $800,000. If you have 3 full-time doctors, not counting yourself, you should be making $1.2 million to $1.8 million. That is assuming you take nothing. Most veterinarian doctors I know that run their own clinic are typically doing $800,000 to $1 million themselves. But this is a really good margin to say, what is your doctor making for you? If your full-time doctor is making you $150,000, you've got several issues. 1, you're probably paying them too much for what they're bringing in. And 2, you're not charging enough, because a 40-hour-a-week veterinarian should be able to make, in most areas, $400,000 to $600,000 for you. That gives them a great pay. That's able to pay for 2.5 employees to help service them. And that's to pay for profit for you as the owner. And then owner pay, 10 to 15% of gross revenue. $1 million clinic, you should be making between $100,000 and $150,000. That's just what it is. If you're making less than that, let's see what we can do to get you on track to make at least that. Cash flow check. Even if you're profitable, are you liquid? What does that mean? If your company is showing a great profit, but your bank shows you have $5,000 in it, you're probably not very liquid. If you have a lot of accounts receivable that haven't been collected because you realize, hey, we have huge bad debt and we're unable to collect this, that's not very liquid. If you have a lot of payables on the book, but not enough revenue to cover those, you're not very liquid. And some of these are red flags. Struggling to pay bills, a huge red flag. Delaying payroll, using credit cards to float expenses. If you're seeing yourself hit one of these, there's some things you need to look at. If you're hitting 2 or 3 of these, you are in dire need of a whole financial overhaul. And you need to understand that you can't always do this tomorrow. You can't rob Peter to pay Paul. You have to be on top of what you're doing. Delaying payroll is horrible in itself because your employees are relying on that. And this is one of the traps I've seen veterinarians get into before working with us is they're like, I'll pay them, but I won't pay myself. You're making a lot of money to not pay yourself. And if you're using a credit card to float expenses, other than the folks who like to put everything on a credit card and then to pay it off 100% of the way off on its due date, those are different. This is for folks who they need supplies. They need to be able to get feed if they're helping with, if they have if they're housing animals for overnight. If you're putting it on credit card there because you realize you don't have enough, or you're putting it on credit card to float those so you can pay payroll, you have to start checking what your clinic can do in the next 2 to 3 months so you're not in that situation again. Don't wait until December to fix it. This is an extremely common mistake. A lot of folks ignore books until the fourth quarter. They're wanting to come in October, November, December, say, hey, I have an issue. What can we do to make this work? Not a lot. Why is that a problem? Because there's not enough time to make meaningful changes. There are fewer tax strategies available, and there are more financial pressures on you. Not only is there not enough time to make a meaningful difference, but anything that you can do requires a huge outflow of cash. So you have to be very liquid in order to take advantage of some of these things you are able to do. All of a sudden, you want to go ahead and put $20,000 into your 401k. You want to do this, you want to do that. You have to be liquid. And it's going to put more pressure on the clinic if you're not ready for that. 3 steps to course correct now. 1, assess. You need to be reviewing your books, your cash flows, and your goals. If you haven't set goals for your clinic, it's now July, you can still set them for the last half of the year. To do that, you need to review your books. If you're not reviewing your books because you don't have someone on your team who's able to help you with your books, reach out to us. We do this every single day, and we want to make sure that everyone understands what is going on with their clinic. Now, if you are reviewing your book, but you're like, well, hey, Joey, I don't have enough cash on hand. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can fix your cash flow issues. Maybe you're missing a lot of profit in your clinic just by not collecting. Maybe you need to start looking at, do we want to get scratch pay? Do we want to get care credit in here? Maybe that's an option. Maybe you're able to factor some receivables if you have to. Not a great option on factoring. I wouldn't recommend it in most cases, but it's an option. 2, adjust. It's okay to start shifting your pricing. If you're realizing you're losing money, maybe it's time you up your prices 5% for the last half of the year. If you haven't raised prices in several years because, hey, people are having a hard time, you're also having a hard time. You have to be able to pay your employees, you have to be able to pay your bills, you have to be able to pay yourself. It's something that happens. Look at cutting waste. If you like to treat your employees to breakfast every single day, lunch once or twice a week, throw big parties for them as a celebration, that's good. But you also need to look at what can you afford. You can't always cut your way out of a deficit, but you can make it so that a slight increase in your income can offset the cuts to the deficit. You also want to start prepping for taxes. If you're not putting money aside and you realize you have more in income than you expected, you need to start putting money to the side to pay estimates if you haven't, but also just to have on hand so that when it does come time, you're ready. 3, act. Implement a budget or forecasting plan for the second half of the year. Like we said, this goes back to number 1. You can't do that if you're not reviewing your books and if you don't set goals. But this is one of the key things to a profitable clinic is setting a budget and forecasting. You want to know that you're growing. A stagnant clinic is a dying clinic. It's just like everything. If you're not growing, every year, 2, 3, 4, 5%, you are a struggling clinic, and it's time to understand that and make some changes. Now, there are some tools you can use. management reports, monthly and quarterly. That's going to help you a lot if you understand what they're saying. Cash flow snapshots. What is cash flow snapshots? We're going to look at what you started with on hand for cash, include any operating income, expenses, go through a whole list of financing, ownership contributions, and see where you ended up to see if you had positive cash flow or negative cash flow. Benchmark dashboards. There's a lot of good tools out there that you can use to see where you're benchmarking with other clinics of your size in the same type of demographic. You need to look at those. Tax estimate trackers. Something gets people in trouble is not paying proper estimates every quarter. All of a sudden, they're owing $50,000 at the end of the year. Hey, I don't have $50,000. I've never had $50,000. That's a problem. If you owe a lot of money, you have to be able to make sure you're tracking your estimates. And sometimes that means paying more in the fourth quarter because you realize my income's grown 20% this year. That wasn't taken into account. Now, these aren't spreadsheets you stare at once a year. They're tools to run your clinic smarter. They are living, they are breathing. They should be changing with what's happening in your clinic. Well, that's all for today, guys. I appreciate you joining us. Let's make sure the second half of your year is your most profitable yet. If you have any questions, please give me an email at joseph@hensoncpagroup.com. Go to our website, book a time to talk with us. Always love hearing from you guys. If you have any questions, please don't